Hello and welcome back to the Sober Cruise podcast. My name is Martin, and as always, I'm joined by Mark. Mark, how are you today?
I'm well, Martin. How are you this morning?
Very good, thank you very much. Well, I think my stomach is going to be starting rumbling soon because this week we're talking about food on board Virgin Voyages, which I think is probably one of the things that sets Virgin Voyages apart and one of the things we both love about the cruise, isn't it?
It is indeed, yes. One of my favourite subjects, and I think of all the cruise lines I've been on, I think Virgin would be pretty close to the top in terms of their food.
Yes, I think Virgin Voyages food is definitely one of the strong sort of points. I mean, on board, you're going to be able to go to very similar sort of types of restaurants. So you've got your what would be, let's face it, these would be specialty restaurants on board everyone's. You'd be paying extra to go. If you were going on Royal Caribbean or NCL, so these are the paying restaurants, but these are all included on Virgin. And then you've got other places to eat around the ship as well, which we're going to go into. But today we're going to be talking mainly about the six main restaurants. So if you've been on another cruise before, you may be used to like a main dining kind of thing that you have to go at a particular time. That you got a 5:30. Who goes to dinner at 5:30? I'll tell you, it's to me, I don't understand that one. 5:30 dinner, and then the next one might be like an 8:15 dinner or something like that. Whereas on Virgin, you make a restaurant reservation, the same as you would do, if you were going out for a meal in town, you'd make a restaurant reservation, wouldn't you? So sort of like a similar vibe. So this,
Yes, so it's maybe worth thinking about, how restaurants on cruise ships have changed over the years. When I started cruising about 25 years ago, it was just coming to the end of the idea that you picked a dining time of say 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and you went to the same table every night and you sat with the same people every night, some of whom you may never have met before. And that was pretty much your only option. And then about 25 years ago, NCL started this idea of freestyle dining, where you could just rock up to the restaurant um, whenever you wanted and get a table. And then a little bit after that, they then started offering this idea of specialty restaurants, where on top of the main dining room, you had effectively a steakhouse or an Italian. But what happened over the years was that those specialty restaurants started out being really very cheap. They were about $10 or $15 above. But over the years, they've become quite expensive. So now if you go to NCL or Celebrity or one of those ones, you could easily be paying $60 or $70 on top of the normal to go to the specialty restaurant. And of course, the great thing about Virgin is that they've completely done away with that concept. They have no main dining room at all, and all the specialty restaurants are in effect free. And so those are the ones that we're going to be talking about today.
yeah, there are things on each menu which you can pay extra for. So the little sort of treat yourself things. So for example, in the wake, there's about four different types of steaks that you can get in the wake. But if you want to go for the tomahawk steak, which me and my friend did actually do once, it's absolutely huge. Then you pay extra for that. But if you want to go into the wake and have steak or four different steaks if you want to, those are all included, and they are really good quality because Virgin worked with Michelin star chefs on land to create these menus. So it's not just dry pasta and steaks that have been sat there for a while. These are really top notch menus, aren't they?
They are indeed. And of course, one of the other things that they do differently is that each restaurant has its own kitchen. And whereas on a lot of the other lines, there's a central kitchen and the food is effectively transferred to the restaurant. So by the time the food gets to you, it could have been going a few hundred meters from where it was cooked. So yeah, so it is. You can't overstate the quality of the food on Virgin. Is that you are getting restaurant quality food wherever you go.
Yeah, this is the kind of food that you'd be paying. If you were on land, if you were in the West End of London before going to the theatre and you went to go and have the equivalent kind of meal, you would be paying, what, £60 for a meal probably?
I would say so.
So exactly the same as you would do on land if you're going out for dinner before a show or going out with some friends, is you'd make a restaurant reservation. Now you can do a walk up and see if there's any availability, but that depends on the evening, depends on the restaurant. But you make your reservations. You can do that all on the Virgin Voyages app. It's really easy to do. something to note for first time people is that only around one third of the availability actually goes onto the app before you set sail. So this is so you can sort of make some reservations, and then what will happen is the rest of that availability, so two-thirds of the availability, will become available once you get on board. So, you know, if you don't get that reservation to go to Extra Virgin or to go to Test Kitchen or something, you know, when you get on board, just jump onto the app. They also have a dining team down at Sailor Services, and they'll be able to help you and make restaurant reservations as well. So if you even if you haven't been able to do it beforehand, the chances are you will be able to get into the restaurant you want to get into. So today we're going to be talking about 3 of the 6, restaurants that you need to make a reservation for. So these ones are going to be Extra Virgin, which is the Italian restaurant, Pink Agave, which is the elevated Mexican, and Test Kitchen, which, is a bit decisive for some people, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's very odd. Test kitchen is fantastic. It's a great experience, but it's certainly unlike anything I've ever come across before.
Yeah, think of Hess and Blumenthal kind of thing where it's a bit kind of different, and it's not for everyone. So we'll explain a little bit more about that later on. So let's start off in Italy, Extra Virgin. So what did you like about this restaurant?
So I quite like Italian food. And now the only problem with it, of course, is it's very carb heavy, but it is a very nice restaurant. It was very busy the night we went there, and the quality of the food is very high. The one thing I would say to people to be a little bit careful of is that the portion sizes are very large, so you're not going to go hungry when you go to Extra Virgin. So most people start with a kind of a shared plate at the for a starter, and then go on to a pasta, and then onto a main course, and then onto a dessert. But it was really really nice. What did you think?
Well, you get that charcuterie board as well, which I think is probably my favorite thing about it. I like charcuterie, so I like sort of sharing, and you got the focaccia bread, and you got all the different kind of hams and that kind of stuff. So it's really nice to sort of sit around a table and enjoy that. The meatballs. Did you try the meatballs?
I did, yeah, they were lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were very nice on there. Again, it is very carb heavy and it is very, like all Italian food, it's quite heavy. The pasta, you can have a full size pasta if you really want to, but you can ask for a half portion, a baby portion, and they will make a smaller version of it because I think the pasta is really good on board. But then you might think, actually, I want to have the steak as well because the steak in extra virgin is really good. We will be talking about steaks a lot across the next couple of podcasts. Um, so you don't necessarily have to have everything. You don't necessarily, for example, the starters, they're quite shareable. It's quite easy to share the starters. Um, and then obviously they've got the desserts at the end. Now I thought the desserts you can just have gelato, so it's not particularly filling compared to
Mhm.
the carbs. The ice cream just melts in between all the carbs in your stomach. There are a couple of different sort of cake options as well, but what I would say is, if you are going to the restaurant a bit later. So, say for example, you've ended up with a 9 o'clock reservation, or 8 o'clock reservation. Don't think, well, I better go at 4 o'clock to go to the galley and go and have some food up there. You won't need it. Go into that restaurant pretty hungry because you're going to come out very a lot heavier than when you went in. I'd say.
You are, yes. And of course, it's not just about pasta. On the main courses, they did have a lovely sea bass, if I remember, as well as the steak you've mentioned, and they had a nice chicken cacciatore, I think somebody had. So so even if you don't like pasta, there's still plenty to choose from.
Yeah, the pasta's probably because they make it fresh on board. And it is really good panda. You can tell it's fresh as opposed to sort of like having sort of drier pasta. Um, and then there's some other things as well. There's quite a lot of seafood, isn't there, on the as you would expect from Italy. And also, it's quite nice if you're sat. We were sat next to the window, weren't we? So it's quite nice to sit there and then look out at sea to seafood.
Yes, it was lovely. It was very nice.
I tried the pork cheek last time because I'd already had the steak a few times when I'd been. So I tried the pork jig, which I liked, but I don't think I'd necessarily have it again. I think this, unfortunately, the steak there is, as I say, unfortunately in a bad kind of way, but good world kind of first world kind of problems kind of way is the uh the steak is so good for me that everything else is just I'm like, well, I should have had the steak. And then you've got the pasta as well. So it's not even like you can say, well, I have the steak and I might maybe have a small version of the pork cheek because that's a lot if you're then going to have that pasta on the side. Which pasta did you try?
I think I just went for the spaghetti.
I think
So I think if I remember, Martin, I went for the parpadelle, if that's even how you pronounce it, but that was lovely. It came with sort of a nice ragu sauce.
yeah, that's a really nice one. I've had the gnocchi before, but I don't think you're a fan of gnocchi, are you?
I'm not. I'm not.
And I've also had the tortellini, as well, and I think I've had I never pronounce it correctly, the cacio and pepe. I think that's how you pronounce it. I mean, it's all pasta basically, isn't it? It's all
It is.
like versions of pasta. But the pappardelle one, the with the ragu, with the bolognese sauce is really good.
Yeah.
I'm having that one.
And of course, it's not just for the meat eaters. There is fish for anyone who's a pescatarian, and there is a nice sort of squash, roasted squash dish for anybody who's a vegetarian. So there's plenty for everybody.
Do you know what? You just reminded me, I actually the first time I went to Extra Virgin, I had the squash.
And what was it like?
It was really nice because I was trying to be a bit healthier on that cruise. I've given up that now. But I was trying to be a bit healthy, and I thought I'd try the different kind of things, and it was really nice. It was very interesting way of doing because I knew everything else would be quite heavy, and I knew the squash would be reasonably lighter compared to the other things, and I think I'd probably had steak quite a few times, as you tend to do. So I
Quite a few times that day, or quite a few times that trip.
Mhm. That trip, 'cause I hadn't had anything out of, of the wake, but, I knew that I'd be having a lot of meat with the meatballs and with the antipasti to start with,
Yeah.
so I had the squash as a bit of an alternative, and then, of course, you got the pasta on the side. I think that time is the one I had the one with the ragu, so that was really nice, as well. So that's the, extra virgin, and then so with all of these are kind of elevated versions. So obviously, if you think of Italian food, Italian food can be anything from just pizza pasta like at Pizza Hut kind of thing, to much kind of like nicer restaurants you're going to get in the West End. And you think more of the higher level ones. This isn't a cheap and cheerful pizza pasta kind of place. This is proper Italian food, and that's what I think a lot of people think that the Mexican is just going to be. Oh, it's just going to be like Chipotle, kind of like
Mm.
fast foody kind of place, and it's not really, is it?
No, it's not. It's not really like your traditional Mexican. It's not kind of enchiladas and burritos, that kind of thing. It really is very high quality food. One of the things I really liked about it was that it kind of it had the food split into small plates, medium plates, and large plates. And what most people tend to do is that they have a kind of a selection of the small plates and the medium plates to share, and then maybe choose one large plate per person. But the food again was fantastic. I think they have a corn dish that went down really, really well. Everybody wanted more of that.
Well, that was
Yeah.
the one I told because this was when we went. It was the first time that everyone had been, and I had been like 4 or 5 times before.
Mm.
And I said to everyone, because we were just ordering again for the starters, we had the small and the medium plates. And I just said, whatever we're going to order for the table with kind of like, tapas kind of style. I said, we're getting at least 2 or 3 of those corns because I could have one just to myself. So I think we can all agree it was the right idea to order a lot of corn for the table, wasn't it?
It was indeed, yes. And we ordered a lot, and it all went. You know,
Yes, very
up there.
as well.
Have more. Yeah. Yeah.
One of those things. It's such a simple thing. I mean, it is just literally, you know, sweet corn that's been grilled, and then there's a really nice kind of like mayo, the sriracha kind of sriracha mayo. I think is what's on there. It's really nice. It's very simple, but just such a nice kind of thing. Not too heavy as well. Obviously, with if the night before you've been to Extra Virgin, then actually this could be a bit of a lighter kind of a day for you, can't it?
It can, but it's still very filling. I think like on the main courses they had like some fish and they had a pork dish that was really really popular, and they had some duck as well, if I remember, and of course the obligatory steak. But in here the steak is covered in cheese.
Yes.
And after I found it a bit much, I took most of the cheese off, but a lot of people did think it was really really nice. It was a nice combination.
Yeah, this the steak is really nice. A lot of people have the duck, and then also the pork, as I said, the pork, and they come with the tortillas to make your own little wraps, as well. So you can. That is where you kind of like what you think of Mexican food, really, isn't it? You just need that. You do have like the tortillas, the wraps and things like that, as one of the starters, one of the medium plates, isn't it? You got like a chicken wrap, which is Korean, so you kind of have a little bit of that. And then, well, one of the other big stars that should know.
I know what you're gonna say. Go on.
Oh, here we go. Not everyone rates around for dessert, do they? Sometimes you feel like, sometimes you think, "Oh, I've had too much. I'm not going to have a dessert." But here
That would be a bad decision.
would be a very bad decision. The worst decision that you can make on the cruise is not staying for dessert. And there is only one. Well, there's more than one thing, but there's one thing that you should be ordering on the menu for dessert.
And tell
And I
us what
think
that is.
it's the chocolate tacos. It's world famous chocolate tacos. I think literally all they do these days is go, "Well, we need to make a million chocolate tacos because this is what everyone wants." They are
Yes.
so what did you think when you first time you had them?
Oh, they were fantastic because, of course, it's not chocolate tacos isn't the whole story. It's chocolate tacos with dulce de leche in the middle, and they were just lovely. They were just really really nice.
They
Perfect
are,
way to end the meal.
yeah, they're very sweet, and I think they come out in 2, and I think a lot of people could just about manage 1. They couldn't necessarily have the second one,
Mm.
because it is quite a a a sweet, thing. It depends on if you like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But everyone absolutely loved them. They are amazing. They're great. They look great as well, so they're good for Instagram. But yeah, I think that's one of the things. Make sure you save enough room. And oh yeah, if you're eating the corn at your starter, that's not a huge amount of room in your stomach, is it? So I think yeah,
They're certainly worth leaving space for.
excellent. Yes. Now, shall we move on to the controversial restaurant? This is the one that splits people in half. People really like it or they're kind of not particularly fussed about it, and that's the test kitchen.
Yes.
And this one is very different. The waiters, waiting staff, wear lab coats because we're in the lab. We're going to be doing food experiments. Well, I say we, the chefs are doing food experiments, and it is a bit kind of different. So you don't actually necessarily get a menu as such. You get an ingredient, and there's 3 different menus that you potentially could be getting. So menu A, B, and C. Now, it depends on how long your cruise is. If you're on a 14-night cruise, then all 3 of those would be available. If you're on a shorter cruise, like, an 8-night cruise that we're going on, for example, it's probably gonna be 2 of those available, and they'll change halfway through the cruise, as to what the menu is. So it might be menu A for the first 3 or 4 nights, and then menu B for the remaining nights, and that. So, you literally just get a menu that says, for example, mushrooms, and you don't really know what they've done with the mushrooms. When they come out with the mushroom dish, they will then explain. So you've got various different courses. It's 5 courses, isn't there?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. You get 5 different courses. Now, there'll always be a meaty option and then a vegetarian, vegan option on the side. And I would flip between some of them. So, for example, I don't eat seafood. So, if there was seafood on the meaty side, I would flip over to the vegetarian for something. Or if I just kind of like the sound of something slightly more, I would move over to that side. So we tried 2 of the menus, didn't we? I've done all 3 of the menus in the past. We've tried 2 of the menus, menu A and menu B. Which one did you prefer?
I think I preferred menu B. Now they were both very good. Um, Now, I didn't know that before we arrived that you could switch. I thought you had to either choose the meat option or the vegetarian option, but you can actually switch between just by course. Or, of course, the other thing you can do is you can have both, which was a very popular decision for the dessert course. For quite a few people at our table had both desserts. Um, it's an incredible place, really. It looks more like a science lab than a restaurant, really. The tables, if I remember, kind of stainless steel, as you say. The staff are all dressed in lab coats. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And if you don't like a particular course, it's not the end of the world. There's another course coming soon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Now it's not incredibly filling. I think there were a number of people left the table and went straight up to the galley to get some more food. So you're going for the experience as much as the food, really.
Yeah. I would say if you were at home, that would be filling enough. But because, if you're doing this towards the end of your cruise and your stomach has now got used to eating, a kilogram of steak a day and everything else, then you might be feeling hungry. But I think there's a reasonable amount of food. But yeah, you do see people go into the galley or go into the social club and go and get like a little peak
Mm.
pop or something afterwards. So some of the things that you can have there's a corn wild we're talking a lot about corn today, aren't we? Nearly as much as we talk about
Yeah.
steaks. So the corn one was just really nice. It was like a corn puree that they then shaped
So it looked like corn. It looked like an ear of corn. It was very
yeah,
nice.
very good, and it had a little bit of, like a little sauce or something, as I remember,
Yeah.
on there. I had the tofu for the next round, which was nice. I think did you have the salmon?
I did. The salmon was very nice. Yeah.
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 And then it was either shrimp or garlic next, but I had the beet cashews, which was very nice, again as well. And then I assume you had the lamb rack
I
there,
did.
doesn't you? Yeah,
Yeah.
and the lamb was really nice. So
It
again,
was.
it's not a huge amount of lamb, but it's more because what they do to it to make it kind of a bit kind of different. You know, if they took it out there and it was a massive slab of lamb and you didn't like it, it's obviously a lot of waste. But this is meant. It's what's the word? Microbiology kind of cooking
Mm.
stuff. So it's not meant to be massive, big plates. It's not a harvester. S
No, it's not.
Let's throw your plate or anything like that. It does look a lot kind of nicer. And then, I think we both had both desserts, didn't we? We both had
I think we did. Yes. Yes.
mango, afterwards as well.
Yes. But we weren't the only ones having both desserts. I think most of the people at the table were,
No,
certainly most of the men at the table were having both desserts.
yeah, and then on the other menu, there's like a mushroom kind of one. And one of the things that puts people off is they see the egg yolk caviar.
Mm.
Now I had
Yeah,
the
so that
vegetarian
was effectively a plate of cold peas with a not cooked egg on top. And it looked lovely, but I just
yeah,
couldn't eat it.
and there was caviar in there as well.
Yes, but a
I
tiny bit of
yeah,
caviar, yes.
yeah, I had the vegetarian version, so I had olive oil drops instead of caviar.
Yeah.
And the bread you get with it is quite nice as well. And I didn't mind too much the egg, but I think it put a lot of people off. A lot of people thinking of Edwina Curry when the egg came out.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing to mention about the test kitchen is that it's a very relaxed serving, so it's not a place to go to if you're in a hurry. I think of all the
Yeah,
meals that we had, it took the longest. I think it took 2.5, maybe 3 hours.
yeah. So I think 2 hours is probably if you're going at a reasonable kind of pace, and that. But yeah, allow 2.5 hours because it is going to be a long kind of experience. Could take it out. Some of the dishes are served under a bell jar, so they lift it off and it's got the smoke underneath it. So there's a bit of theatre to the whole thing. When your dishes arrive, your servers will come out and they'll serve the whole table at the same time, and they'll explain what it is and what they've done to it, what's in it, etc. So you get like a full sort of breakdown of what's actually included in the food and what it is and what they've done. But it is a really um, cool place to go to. Menu C, which doesn't really come out a huge amount because it's more on sort of the longer cruises. I wasn't a fan of anything on there. Very strict and that. So you can ask beforehand, go down and go and see what the menu is, and you can go and ask what if you got a reservation for say night 5, you can go down and say which menu is it on night 5. I'm sure there's people who do like menu C. It wasn't for me. It was the main was chicken on top of chicken on top of chicken in like
Yeah.
harsh, very strange. Some of the things were very odd.
Yes.
So yeah, some people love it, some people hate it,
Yeah.
and, I you like the menu A and B, but, menu
Yeah.
C.
And just one other little thing to say about the test kitchen before we move on, which might be interest to some of our sober cruisers, is it's also the venue for what are called the Friends of Bill W meetings.
It's 8 o'clock in the morning, isn't it?
It was 8 o'clock every morning. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically an AA meeting at sea. It's self-run, so you don't need to, they set up a room. E is away from everything else. You're not, you're not doing it in the middle of the dining restaurant or anything like that.
What most people would do is they'd go to the galley first, get some coffee from there, and then head down to the meeting. Now, the meeting was at 8 o'clock every morning, which at the start of the vacation, people were saying, "Oh, that's very early." But actually, by the end, people were kind of saying, "Well, this is a really lovely way to start the day. Just going down, having a cup of coffee, having a bit of a chat with other people on board who are kind of in a similar situation, who are maybe cruising sober, maybe some for the first time, some for the 21st time." And it was just a lovely way to kickstart the day.
Yeah, nice way, and have your coffee, and it's a nice venue to be fair as well, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that all happens down there. So we've covered 3 of the restaurants and also how to make your restaurant reservations. On the next episode, we'll be talking about the Wake, which is a brunch and also dinner place. Razzle Dazzle, which is also a brunch and dinner place, and then also Gumbay as well, which is again one of those kind of places that it's a lot of fun. But I sometimes think not everyone likes it because can be a bit loud and things like that. But it's a social restaurant, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It was great fun. It was great fun,
Yeah,
yeah. So they serve 8 people per table, food served in the middle for everybody. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. We went twice in our last cruise, so it
it's, and
was
I
it was good.
the chicken and the beef. Well, we'll talk about on the next
Yeah.
the chicken and the beef, and then on a podcast after that, we'll also be talking about other places you can go around the ship. So you got the galley, and then you've also got all those other little kind of places to eat as well. So things like the social club. So you're not going to starve on the Virgin Voyages cruise, are you?
You're not, no. So there's always places to get pizza and ice cream and burgers but again, I can't say this enough, the quality of the food is just so good.
Very, very good. Yes. So, if you'd like to find out more about sailing with us, please go to thesobercruise.co.uk. From there, you can find out all about the cruise that we'll be doing with Virgin Voyages and other cruises we're doing as well. Plus, also, you can book in a call as well. So, if you want to chat a little bit about what is a sober cruise, what happens on board, what's the kind of group like, then you can book in a call and have a little chat with us to find out a little bit more. But thank you for joining us today, Mark, and hopefully your stomach's not rumbling too much after all the talk of food. And we shall see you on the next podcast.
Okay, thanks, Martin. See you next time.